Welcome to the Epic Success Podcast. I am your host, Dr. Shannon Irvine. Today's episode is going to be around the cult of overwork and how it's actually blocking you from the very thing that you want. How this illusion of hustle till your eyes bleed and sleep when you're dead culture amongst entrepreneurs and CEOs is literally running you and your business into the ground. And I can't think of a better guest to have on today than the one and only Michael Hyatt. He and his daughter have written a new book called When It Works, Succeed at Life by Michael Hyatt and by Hyatt Miller. And this book is the most vulnerable act of service that I have seen from any entrepreneur in a very, very long time. It is exposing what Michael went through and also what Megan has gone through in this desire, this quest to build not just a business that they love, but a life that they love. And they share all of the wounds and the missteps in the process of creating this system of 5 key components that once you shift them, things start to really click in place. They have a concept called the double win, winning at work and at life, and they give you specific strategies to do that in all 5 of these categories. So today's episode is definitely going to be a noteworthy pen in hand kind of a podcast episode. So grab a piece of paper, grab your favorite coffee, and let's sit down and have a chat with my dear friend, Michael Hyatt. All right, here we go. Welcome back to the Epic Success Podcast, Michael. I'm so excited to have you.
Shannon, thank you for having me again. I'm excited to be with you.
So we're talking about your, newest book, When It Works, Succeed at Life. These 5 principles to free yourself from the cult of overwork. I love that word choice so much. My tribe knows I talk about the detriment in the brain when it comes to overworking. I'm a self-recovered overworkaholic, somebody who used to say stupid things like I'll sleep when I'm dead and I'm going to hustle till my eyes bleed and, popping chocolate covered espresso beans to keep going longer. So as I'm reading this book, I'm like doing a lot of, oh yeah, amen. Oh yeah. So I'd love to dive right into deep into the pool, if that's all right with you. I know we're going to touch on the 5 key components in this idea of a double win and really focusing in on not just work, but why do we overwork? What is that you've discovered? And I'd love for you to share a little bit of your own personal story of how that kind of revelation came to be.
Yeah, let me start with the story because I think this will give people some context that's important. And of course, this is the story that opens the book. So back about 2000, I got my dream job. I was made the publisher of a major book publishing company. It was Nelson Books, one division of 14 of Thomas Nelson Publishers. So this division that was given to me to run, I was the general manager. It was dead last in every important metric. So it was not only not growing, it was shrinking. It was not only not profitable, we'd lost money the previous year. And the team morale, as you can imagine, was terrible. So the CEO brought me in to turn it around. And he said, how long do you think it's going to take you to turn this division around? And I said, I was like pulling a number out of the air. And I said, I think it's going to take 3 years. And he said, okay, that sounds reasonable. You've got it. So Shannon, I rolled up my sleeves. I shared the vision with the team. We were working like crazy. We were working nights, weekends. I personally was working 70 to 80 hours a week, but it paid off because in 18 months or a year and a half the time I had told the CEO, we went from number 14 to number 1. We're the fastest growing division in the company. We're the most profitable division in the company. And I got the biggest bonus check I'd ever received in my entire career. I mean, I was giddy. It was so big. And so I knew Gail was going to be thrilled. So I went home, I was elated. I bounced into the house. I couldn't wait to show it to her. I unfurled it, with great drama. And I said, babe, look at this. And she just was not her usual enthusiastic self. And I'm thinking to myself, uh-oh. And she said, babe, we got to talk. And so we went and sat down in the den, and she said to me, she kind of started to tear up. She said, I love you. And I appreciate how hard you work for this family. But she said, honestly, you're never home. I mean, I never see you. The kids never see you. And she said, your 5 daughters desperately need you. Well, man, I wanted to defend myself because I felt like I was doing it for them, but I kind of knew deep in my heart she was right. And then she said, even when you're here, you're not really here. You're somewhere else. And then she started to cry, and she said, honestly, I'm going to get choked up telling this. Honestly, I feel like a single mom. That's the last thing I wanted her to feel. Isolated, alone, discouraged. And I felt like I had reached the pinnacle of success. And what I discovered, Shannon, was that it was a false summit. And I think that most business owners, most entrepreneurs, most leaders, when they're in that situation, they feel like they're faced with what we call in the book, the impossible choice. You can win at work, or you can succeed at life. You can't do both. Pick one. And I didn't like that. And I said, I went on a quest, and it took me about 18 years. I went on a quest to try to see if there was a third way where you could win at work and succeed at life, where you didn't have to compromise, your professional ambition, because that's very unsatisfying to high achievers. But on the other hand, you didn't sacrifice your health or your most important relationships on the altar of your ambition. And that this book was born out of that. It's something we call the double win. We think it's possible. We've been living it now for years. Our clients are living it to one degree or another. And we're on a crusade to get this message out there.
And this crusade, I think at this point of time, it couldn't be more poignant, given that we have shifted into a culture from now maybe working out of the house into working at home, where their boundaries are fuzzy. But us entrepreneurs, us 3s on the Enneagram, these high achieving types like us, it's part of our identity. Like, it's the juice. It's the thing that lights us up. And so I would love for you to talk about that, because I feel like we all know, like there's a high achievers kind of code, and it's almost bragging rights in a sense. Like, well, I've done this and I've done this and I've done this. Yeah, I might have failed marriages and this and that and the other thing, but look at this baby that is my business, right? Or look at this, top pinnacle thing. I'd love for you to speak into that warped sense of identity being connected so much with achievement.
Yeah. And like you said, for people that are Enneagram 3s, or my top strength on the Strength Finders is achievement.
Achiever. Yeah.
And so, man, I just kind of live to tick boxes off my to-do list. And yet, the thing is, God created me a human being, not a human doing. And we live in a culture where there are so many celebrity entrepreneurs like Elon Musk, just to pick on one, who advocates, he literally has advocated this multiple times from the stage, that if you work 80 to 100 hours a week, you will smoke your competition. You'll bury them. And that's what's required. And we call that in the book the hustle fallacy. And unfortunately, it's burning out a tremendous number of people. People are getting to the place where they experience a health crisis, or their marriage falls apart, or their kids won't talk to them anymore, or they don't have any friends. And then they lose their work. Like when I was at Thomas Nelson as the CEO, I eventually got promoted from that previous job, became the CEO of the company and ran it for a number of years. But my predecessor, the day after I was voted by the board to be the new CEO, my predecessor, who is now the chairman, walked into the office and said to our CFO, he said, Joe, if I'm not the CEO, who am I? He had so meshed his identity with his work role that he could not tell the difference. Now, work is enormously seductive. And I really think that when we talk about workaholism. We're not using a metaphor, right? This is a real condition. It's a real thing. And it starts with the fact, like a lot of drugs, work is fun. Now, I'm not talking about, the kind of drudgery work that, we have to occasionally do, but I'm talking about if you're an entrepreneur, if you have some discretion over your work, if you're doing what you love, it is fun. And I talk to entrepreneurs all the time. You probably do too. When I say to them something like, do you have any hobbies? And they're like, work is my hobby. Are you kidding me? I love my work. Why would I do anything else? I like to work. That's my joy. It's my favorite thing to do. So work is fun. So that's one of the first things. I think in another way, what makes it so seductive is that it's outcome based. In other words, we get to see results for our efforts. And let's be honest, that's not always true in the home, right? It's not always true in our relationships, because we can't always tell when we're making progress. And sometimes as spouses or as parents, we feel like it's 3 steps forward, 2 steps back, sometimes 3 or 4 steps back. We don't feel like we're making progress, and work is seductive because it gives us that sense of progress, which all the research I've read says that happiness comes from making significant progress toward a meaningful goal. It doesn't come from achieving the goal. A lot of people, get messed up there. It doesn't come from achieving the goal, but it comes from making progress. That's why people like you and me, when we accomplish a goal, we don't usually stop to celebrate it. We go right to the next one.
Absolutely. Right? Absolutely.
Because the happiness is in the making the progress.
Yeah. And we know that from brain science, that my tribe has listened to that over and over again. The brain loves the chemicals of the process and those little micro wins and those furthering the ball down the path to the achievement. And it's exactly it. We hit the achievement and it's almost like, we're like in the moment, we're like, yes, 2, 3, what's next?
And that's why I really encourage entrepreneurs that are wired like us. They've got to take time to celebrate and notice the rewards, right? And so, but work is rewarding. And, I especially pity stay-at-home parents, because there aren't a lot of rewards. In fact, there's frankly a lot of abuse, and I can remember thinking when we were raising our 5 daughters, and, there were just times when, we'd have knockdown, drag out, arguments, and, you just feel like, God, I suck at being a parent and I'm not making any progress. And, in addition to a wedding fund and a college fund, I better get a therapist fund for each of these kids because they're going to need it. But, it just feels like that there's not the rewards. And by the way, just parenthetically, one of my favorite moments in parenting was about 10 years ago. My oldest daughter, Megan, with whom I wrote this book, she was a parent. She had 3 by that time. And she called me up on the phone one time. She said, Dad, I got a parenting question. And she said, but before I ask you this question, she said, I've just got to say, why you didn't kill us is a mystery to me. And I felt strangely validated at that moment.
That moment was like, the angel song.
Yeah, it was so good. So anyway.
Yeah. But you're touching in on really that first big pillar in the book, which is the fact that work is only one of the many areas of life. And I just have a personal story when it comes to this. We think like once you achieve this understanding, then you'll never go backwards. And we have a system in our program all around the 12 areas and how to make sure you have that value always. It doesn't mean you have to set the goal in that area. It just means you have to be aware of those areas and make sure that that goal does not harm those things that really mean the most to you. But even so, when I brought my business online, because the new challenge, it felt like the new Mount Everest. Okay, let's go. I clicked back into that old worn groove in my brain of, I know how to do this. And I just back into the work gear. And before I knew it, my health was failing. My adrenal glands were getting shot. My marriage, although it was strong, was showing some cracks because I was not the present person. It wasn't that I didn't spend time, because being who I am, I had to actually schedule those things. And I know you talk about that. So I scheduled stuff, but I was not totally there again, and my kids, same thing. And so I love that you talk about that there's these other orientations in life that give you multi-dimension and give that texture that we're really craving when we're looking for the freedom in our businesses.
It's true. And that's actually the first principle in the book. The first principle of 5 that we cover is that work is only one way to orient your life. And you talked about 12 dimensions. I've talked about elsewhere in other books I've written up about the 10 domains. I don't care if it's 7 or 10 or whatever, but it's more than one, right? It's more than one. You've got you in relationship to yourself. You've got your spirit, you've got your emotions, you've got, your physical body, you've got, all that. Then you in relationship to other people. If you're married, you've got a spouse, you've got your kids, you've got your friends, hopefully. You've got, the impact you're making on the world. You've got your vocation, you've got your avocation with your hobbies and so forth, and then your finances. And this is a long distance race.
Yeah.
And if you want to go the distance, if you want to have comprehensive success that lasts for a long period of time, then you've got to accept the reality that life is multidimensional, and you've got to define the win in each of those dimensions. And work can only be part of it, right? So it can't be the totality of it, no matter what Elon Musk or other people say. It can't be the totality of your life. It's only one way to orient your life, and it's an important way. I'm not taking anything away from it. And I certainly want to win big at work, but I also don't want to do it at the expense of the other things that are critically important to my happiness and my overall success. I want to be in the best health I can be in. I want to have an outstanding relationship with my wife, Gail, to whom I've been married now for 42 years. I want to be talking to my kids. My kids, Shannon, all live within about 5 miles of me. So my 5 daughters and their families all live within about 5 miles of me. All 9 of my grandkids live within 2 miles. And we get together all the time. I don't want to screw that up. I've got an investment in that. I don't want to screw that up, but that means that I've got to pursue work-life balance. And I know that for a lot of people, that's kind of a myth. It's fashionable to say, oh, it's a myth. There's no such thing as work-life balance. And I just want to call BS on that. A lot of it depends on how you define balance. Balance does not mean that you give equal weight, equal attention, or equal time to each of those other dimensions. What it means is you give the appropriate amount of time. And most of the time, like let me give you an example. I work out at the gym 1 hour a day. That's not that much. I'm at work, 6 hours a day. We'll talk more about that in a minute, but 6 hours a day. So I'm working a whole lot more than I'm working out, but an hour is an appropriate amount for me to give attention. It's really all I need to, stay in tip-top shape. So it's the appropriate amount. But the way balance feels is like when you're walking over, a rope or a balance beam, when you're constantly having to adjust to stay in balance. And that's how it is with life. It's not like you reach this mythical state where, ta-da, I'm in balance, doesn't require any more effort. No, it's constant tension of balancing and rebalancing to stay in balance.
So this, I hope, is really eye-opening for so many people, because I love that you say in the book that it's dynamic. And that dynamicness is when you can shift into that thinking, it's so powerful, because then you're really looking at all those areas of your life and saying, how do I make sure that one doesn't pull me off over here versus here? And I love that imagery in the book of, I've got a gymnast in the family who's 10. And so we're always working on those beams. And I after reading the book, I'm watching her this weekend and I'm like, yeah, that's it. It's not, and it's simple, but yet at the same time, most people think it's not possible. And so they just scrap it all and just throw it all into work and say, forget it. It's just easier for me to put my head down. Right.
Totally. And, that's not to say that there aren't times in our life where we have seasons where we intentionally, and this is the key word, intentionally go out of balance. Maybe we're launching a product, or you mentioned to me before we started, you're finishing up a book. There's seasons when we may go out of balance. The problem is when we deceive ourselves into thinking that season's only temporary, when in fact it becomes permanent, or we let one of those, high demand seasons bleed into another one. Like I can remember for years, I lied to Gail. Didn't intentionally do it, but I lied to her. So I would say to her, honey, I'm just starting this new job. Once I get acclimated, I'll give you and the girls the time and attention you deserve. And then I'd, go through 6 weeks at that, and I'd go, oh, our marketing director just resigned. So now I'm covering for 2 positions. So once I get this new marketing director hired, then I'll give you the time and the attention you and the girls deserve. And so one season bled into another season. Before long, it was my life. It was my lifestyle. And that's how deceptive this is. So I do recommend to people, if you're going to go out of balance for a season to finish a project or whatever, make sure that you have an honest to God conversation with your spouse. What's that going to look like? How long is it going to be required? What's your accountability? When is it going to end? And are you okay with that? Because it's not fair to ask them to hold up everything else while you're just working on that one thing, getting it done.
Yeah, that's powerful. And this is, Michael doesn't know that I'm talking about this, but I'm literally looking at it right now. One of the best tools that you've already created for that is the Full Focus Planner, and being able to really incorporate one of the greatest things my husband and I have gotten into is we sit and do those weeklies before the next week together.
Awesome.
And that was hard for me because we aren't on this, and we are literally opposites. And so it's so brought balance into my week and what's important and what's there. So just a tool that is, if you have a hard time with this is like, that tool will help you manage the higher priorities for yourself and focus in on those other areas. I want to make sure we dive into this pillar, the third pillar in the book, the third of the 5, because not the third was work-life balance, but the second, I don't want to bypass that, because I think there is this elusive thing that most entrepreneurs and CEOs chase, and it's this freedom piece, right? It's a high on most of our needs. We want freedom. We don't want people telling us where we need to be and all those things, although that's kind of interesting as you move up in your company and grow, because then you actually do have people telling you where to be, but which is okay. It actually is freedom, because it's this concept that you brought up in the book of constraint fosters, I think, even freedom. You said productivity, creativity, and freedom. Dive deep into that, because I think most people think like, oh, that can't be possibly true. How, you guys are crazy. Like, how can constraint create that? I've witnessed it in my own life, but I'd love for you to share from your research and expertise what you saw there.
Yeah, this is so counterintuitive. Most people who get into business for themselves do it, as you said, because they're motivated by freedom. They're tired of working for the man. They want to be free to, chart their own course, cast their own sail, and just go wherever they want. And that's really doesn't work out that way. But here's how constraints help. And let me just go back to my story for a second. So after I had that awakening in the den with Gail, I knew I needed help. And I knew I couldn't figure this out on my own, because if I could, I would have already done it. So I hired an executive coach. And the first thing he said to me is he said, let's put together a life plan. And so I did that. And he said, the second thing we're going to do is that I want you to establish some constraints, because he said, you're like a river without boundaries. And I said, okay, so what does that look like? And he said, here's what you told me. He said, you told me that you work all day long, and then in the afternoon, if you glance at your watch and realize you're not going to finish, you basically say to yourself, it's okay. I'll go home, I'll eat a quick bite with the kids, and then I'll crack open my laptop and I'll continue working. And that, in fact, was my practice, like literally 4 to 5 nights a week. And if I didn't finish my work for the week by Friday afternoon, I would say, no problem. I'll just do this Saturday morning, or I'll do it Sunday night. And I was even the kind of person, Shannon, and probably like a lot of people listening to this, who when I go on my vacation, I didn't unplug from work. I would be like a totally foreign concept. No, I was up at the crack of dawn before the family got up, checking email, maybe working intensely on a project. I saw vacation as an opportunity to catch up on the projects I couldn't do during normal work. I mean, that's not a vacation, but so many people are guilty of that, right? So he said to me, what time are you willing to quit every day? And so, and I'll tell you where this has evolved, but let me tell you where I started. I said, well, I could quit by 6 p.m. He said, okay. It wasn't directive. He wanted to hear from me. I just said 6 p.m. He said, okay. He said, what about the weekends? I said, well, gulp. I think I'm willing to not work on the weekends. Man, I felt like I was boxing myself in. And what about vacations? Yeah, I'm willing to unplug for vacations. Okay, great. He said, are you serious about this? I said, yes, I'm serious. He said, okay. So I could see the accountability coming. He was going to ask me if he could check in on me on this, but that's not what he said. He said, good. Now that you're committed, I'm sure you won't mind if I call Gail periodically and ask her how you're doing. And I was like,
ouch.
Well, okay. And he did. And so he didn't get me in my Enneagram 3-ness trying to put the best positive spin on how I was doing. No, he's asking Gail, how's he really doing? Is he home at 6? Is he not working on the weekends? Is he not working on vacations? So that kind of accountability was huge. But here's the thing that I noticed. I got more focused, more productive, and more creative than ever before. Let me give you another example, and everybody can relate to this. It's Friday afternoon. You're flying out the next morning on a week-long vacation to some amazing place. You saved for this. You're going to spend a lot of money on it. You're taking the family. How productive are you on that Friday afternoon? I mean, you're crazy productive.
Fire. Yeah.
Right? I mean, because you have this hard stop, this constraint that's making you more productive. So what my workday looked like is that once I did that, I would look in the afternoon, I'd go, oh my gosh, half the day's gone. And I better really get focused here, not check social media, not get distracted in conversations that don't matter, chit chat, whatever. But I got to stay focused because once I close my laptop, before I leave to get home at 6, I'm done. So I started making better decisions and got more productive. Okay. Can I share one more story?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So I want to share how, because it works for me. I mean, last year our company grew double digits on the top line. We doubled our profit. I took off 162 days last year. So that was every weekend, 11 holidays, and 11 weeks worth of vacation.
Awesome.
So it was awesome.
Yeah.
So it really works, but does it work for the team? So the pandemic started and we realized that all the young team members that we had, the young parents, suddenly had no daycare, no child care. They're stressed out with all that, plus all the environmental stress from, the dipping economy to everything else. And so we said, okay, guys, as an experiment, and this was like toward the end of March, we said, we're going to go to 6-hour work days. We're not cutting anybody's salary. Everybody's going to get paid the exact same thing. But instead of working 8 hours a day, and we're pretty rigorous about that. No working on the evenings, no working on the weekends, no working on vacations. But we said, we're going to go to 6-hour work days, 30 hours a week as an experiment. And we're going to check back in 2 weeks. 2 weeks came and went. We checked on everybody. Everybody felt like, and we felt like as management, everybody's been as productive as they were before. They were actually making better decisions or more productive. So he said, this is really interesting. Okay, let's roll this out through the summer as an experiment. So we weren't committed yet. Went through the summer. Everything seemed on track. We were having an incredible year. We were on trajectory to beat the previous year by a significant amount, so I mentioned earlier. And so in our strategic planning meeting in September, we said, guys, I think we've discovered something that's really the key to our success, which means fewer working hours. So we made it a permanent benefit to our employees. So nobody at Michael Hyatt and Company has to work more than 30 hours a week. Now, in fairness, there are people that struggle with this still, but we're on a mission. And so what we have a stated, one of the statements in our vision script, we say is that we work 85% of the time, we work 30 hours a week or less. So we can allow for those seasons when we have to go out of balance, but by and large, the vast majority of the time, we want it to be 30 hours a week.
So, and we're seeing this now. I don't know if you saw the news yesterday. I try to avoid it as often as possible, but Salesforce just came out and said, we're no longer, first of all, we're no longer going to have buildings that we work in. We're going to be all remote. And they just came out and said, we're going to a flex 6-hour work day. You decide when that 6 hours is, as long as your KPIs, your performance indicators, all those things are there, you're good. And they company-wide went that way. And so It's huge.
Yeah, it's huge. And in case anybody's doubting this or thinking maybe we're an anomaly or Salesforce is anomaly,
Right.
there's a book by Alex Pang, P-A-N-G, called Shorter. And Alex, unlike me, is a scientist. So he goes out there and he does all the research, and he's got all the case studies from fascinating companies all over the world who have intentionally shortened their work weeks, some of them even more dramatically than we did, and have gotten stellar results as a result. They've gotten even better results than they were getting before when they had a longer workday.
Yeah. Yeah, because you cut out the things that aren't important.
That's it.
And your brain loves that. Your brain's like, oh, I'm getting dopamine after dopamine. Like this, it actually really starts to feed your creativity, which you talk about, like the ideas and the creativity that gets created from allowing for that focus and for that constraint really starts to amplify.
It's really true.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So let's dive into another controversial topic, number 4 in your list of 5, which is this concept of the power. Okay, it'll be okay, achievers. The power of non-achievement. And
people think we're heretics now.
I know, they're like, well, what? But the power of non-achievement in its relation to everything that we've been talking about, and the images in the book, the glasses, and how you have that broken down. I'd love for you to talk about, first of all, how did you stumble into this as a high achiever, the non-achievement piece of the puzzle? And when did the light bulb go on that this might just be a key to what I've been looking for?
Well, I think as a recovering workaholic, I pretty much valued everything based on whether or not I was achieving something in that. But there's a lot of stuff in life that you can't measure. And a lot of stuff in life that's deeply satisfying and deeply rewarding that, is not really an achievement activity. Walking through the Metropolitan Museum of Art and just basking, in the glow of these incredible paintings and other artifacts isn't really an achievement kind of thing. Or when I sit down, one of my hobbies is playing the Native American flute, and I guess I could turn that. I mean, trust me, I can turn anything into an achievement, but to just play for the sheer joy of playing, or to go fishing, which I love. In fact, that's now approaching an addiction, but it's not about achievement. There's just real power in setting aside part of your life. I'm not advocating it has to be the entirety of your life, right? Because there's important things I want to achieve for sure. But there are spaces in my life where non-achievement, or even desecrating those sacred spaces with achievement, is not something I'm after. And in those times of non-achievement are sometimes the places where we have the biggest breakthroughs, where we're relaxed, we're not really thinking about anything, and suddenly we get this blinding insight. I mean, it could be a new business idea. It could be something that repairs a relationship that's been broken. It could be any number of things. But if you don't give yourself space to relax and not just be go, 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 busy, 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 you'll never get that. You'll be busy. You'll get a lot done, but you have to ask yourself, what's the value of what you've gotten done? The best things in life can't really be measured. For me, my relationship with God is critically important. That's not something I can really subject to measurement. It's a qualitative thing. My relationship with my wife, most relationships are this way. Hobbies give me that opportunity to pursue non-achievement, to just do it for the pure enjoyment of doing it, like kids do when they play. That's the key.
Yeah. I mean, I love that analogy with play. And my tribe knows I've shared this. We have a coaching certification, right? That certifies coaches in this neurocoaching model that is really brain-based way to create the best mindset for a 7-figure business. That idea came when I was skiing. Right? It came when I was in this, I love to ski. I think it's so much fun. And it came when I was skiing. I don't think it would have come in that highly achieving place because I was focused on what I could visually see, but pulling back in this gorgeous place where you're just connected to God and connected to creation and connected to all those things. All of a sudden, the idea of the ripple in the pond and having other people use the methodology so that they could make the impact was like, well, of course.
That's good.
But I was too close to it to see it otherwise. So this non-achievement actually amplifies or speeds up the areas of achievement that you want to get to. I know our business wouldn't be where it is if I hadn't gone skiing that day. Like I just know it. Like I know it as sure as I know. Or daily, one of my practices, drop the kids off. We are blessed to live near Cardiff Beach. So we drive down to Cardiff Beach. I drive down to Cardiff Beach and I sit in the sand, and that's where I have my time with God. And out of that has come some of my relational big wins. So it's individual, isn't it? It's really like a personal thing. What lights you up and gives you that energy.
But this is why it's so important to cultivate hobbies. I mean, to be really intentional about it.
Yeah.
I get that work's fun, but all work and no play makes Jack and Jill dull people. And so, to have a hobby, the CEO, the guy that was my predecessor at Thomas Nelson Publishers, the reason his identity was conflated with his role at work was because he had no other life outside of work. I mean, he was married and he had kids, but he really didn't spend any time with them. And he definitely didn't have any hobbies. And to intentionally cultivate hobbies is really important, because there's going to come a time in your life when either by your own choice or by circumstances, you're not going to be able to work. You're not going to be able to work like you did work. And that'll be okay as long as you have a life outside of work. So let me give you an example, Shannon. My daughter, Megan, again, she's the co-author of this book with me. I made her the CEO of the company, of Michael Hyatt and Company, on January the 2nd of this year. So I've stepped back. I'm actually only working 3 days a week now, taking 2 days, Thursday and Fridays are my days off, along with the weekend. But the reason I was able to do that, first of all, I saw a really botched succession plan when I was at Thomas Nelson, because I could tell you stories that went south from there in terms of him, in terms of our relationship together, because he just didn't want to let go and he kept holding on to it. I was determined I wasn't going to do that. So I decided, like 4 years ago, when we announced it to our team that we were going to make this transition, that I need to start getting excited about the other areas of my life outside of work and be even more intentional in cultivating my hobbies, so that I had something I was looking forward to beyond work. So I would just ask the people listening to this, what is it beyond work that you look forward to? And what would have to be true for you to start getting excited about some of those other areas? Maybe there's a hobby that you put down when you became an adult. Like I put down guitar playing. I stopped playing the guitar when I got into the workforce because I thought I don't have time for that. It's not achieving anything. I can't measure it. It's going nowhere. I can't make money off of it. So why do it? Well, about 7 years ago, I walked into a guitar store here in Nashville with one of my daughters who's a guitar player. I sat down, I picked up a guitar, this amazing Martin guitar, and I started playing it. Shannon, I started weeping. It touched something so deeply in me. And I thought, why haven't I been pursuing this? Yeah. And so whatever it is for you, and people are going to have all different kinds of hobbies, but just as an experiment, try it for 30 days or for 6 weeks to really go full tilt into that hobby, to use some of your spare time and invest in that hobby and see what it does to even to your work life.
Yeah. Wow. You get me a little teary-eyed because about a year ago, I finally started, because I was that person. I'm like, I hobbies, I have kids, I have, a nonprofit, I have my hobbies, but I really uncomfortably said, I'm going to commit to it. And I went back. I was a dancer up until, through college, NFL, all that. And then stopped because I started running restaurants and then consulting and then the businesses. And so I committed to going back into the dance room and dancing and all that comes with that when you aren't 15 and 20 and going through that. But it's like there's freedom that's come from that I can't imagine my life without now, that it wasn't even a part of my life a year ago. And so It's pretty powerful stuff, this idea of non-achievement and scheduling it, like really like committing to it and putting it in the schedule so you don't let that be the thing that gets taken off the list.
If I could just underline that, that's critically important. One of the things that you probably heard me say before, but what gets scheduled gets done.
Amen.
And whether it's a date night or whether it's time with your friends, I just scheduled an evening with a couple of our closest friends this morning, or if it's, fishing. If you don't claim your calendar, somebody else will. And there'll never be room for that stuff. It just gets crowded out. If you're waiting for the time when your boss or your customers or your clients say to you, you've been serving us so well, I think you should take some time off. They won't do that. They have an insatiable desire for more of you. And so you've got to look out for you. You've got to claim the time on your calendar first if these other areas are going to get attention.
Yeah. You got to claim your calendar. That is so clutch, especially for people with my personality type and Michael's. So that's very much active rest, like hobbies, enjoying. What about the last pillar, which is this idea that rest, actual sleep, actual recharging is foundation, and it's so meaningful to your life's work. I would love for you to, as we're wrapping up, talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. I used to see sleep as the enemy. And I used to think if I could just get by on less sleep, I could reinvest that time and really blow away the people I was competing with in the corporate world. Because if I got to the office 2 hours earlier, that would give me a leg up, right? And in fact, when I was at Thomas Nelson Publishers, we published a book that was, the premise of the book was basically how to get along on 4 hours sleep a night and just think how you could redeploy and reinvest that time. That is so anti-science, so unbelievably detrimental to everything from our, as you well know, our brain health, to our heart health, to our focus, our productivity, our creativity. I like this quote from Dan Sullivan. He says, did you ever wonder that, the more tired you are, the dumber people get? Well, actually, it has nothing to do with the other people. It has everything to do with you. And so sleep is the foundation of productivity. It's the foundation of creativity. It's really the foundation of focus. I mean, you've had this experience where it's late at night, you're trying to read something, and you have to keep reading the same paragraph over and over again because you're so tired. Or you're trying to finish a project in the evening, and I've had Gail say this to me, back when I was doing that. She said, honey, you're so much better in the morning. Why don't you just get a good night's rest? And sure enough, an hour early in the morning was worth 3 hours, when I was tired. So we do advocate for that in the book about really being intentional with your rest. And the average person needs minimum 8 to 9 hours of sleep per night, which probably most of us, the vast majority of us, aren't getting. And yet everything, like I said, not just our creativity and our productivity, but our physical health is dependent upon us doing that.
And you flip it in a way that I haven't seen done yet. So as I'm reading, and my thought before the book is like, I plan my day, I wind down, I have my rituals, they're all in my full focus planner, and then I sleep, and the sleep ends the day. And you're saying, no, that's not the end of the day. That's actually the start of your next day. Like that blew my mind.
Yeah, well, so I stole this from the Bible because,
good.
It's true in Jewish culture, and it's right there in the book of Genesis, because when God creates the world, it's evening and morning were the first day. And so Jews mark the day from sunset on the evening till sunset the next day. When does the Sabbath begin? Right? Yeah. So it's sunset Friday night until sunset Saturday. And so what that means is we don't end the day with sleep. We start with sleep. It's the foundation. It's the non-negotiable that has to be in place if we're going to win the day. So, I read a book years ago by Jim Lair called The Power of Full Engagement, and he's a performance coach for athletes. And he said, the quality of your sleep determines whether or not you win the game. And so high performance athletes are militant, diligent about getting a good night's sleep. Tom Brady did not win the Super Bowl this last year because he stayed out partying all night, the night before the Super Bowl. No, I looked up his habits. He is unbelievable. But it starts with he sleeps 9 hours a night and he gets to bed by 9 p.m. every night. And he's, again, rigorous about that because he knows that everything stands or falls on the quality of his sleep. So I would just reverse it. If you're going to set an alarm with regard to sleep, set it for when you go to bed, not for when you get up.
Oh my gosh, this is game changers. Like I texted my husband and I said, starting Monday morning, we're like putting this in our calendar. And he's all for it. He's the one that's like, woo, yay. Finally, she's not up watching the Shark Tank till 10:30 p.m. So Michael, as we wrap up, we love doing this with our tribe because what I don't want my listeners to listen to this and think these are great ideas and then bury them and not use them. So I really want my listeners to go. It's in pre-order right now.
That's right.
So go and order the book. What I want to do is I want to do something fun around it. I've done this with one of Michael's books before. And again, this is just my way of putting you into action. And I love giving things away to action takers. That's a big part of our tribe's culture. So in the link below, if you're listening and you have the show notes, it's there. But if you're just listening, go to Amazon, go wherever you buy your books and buy When It Works, Succeed at Life by Michael Hyatt and Megan Hyatt Miller, and send me the receipt. You don't need to send it to me physically, but tag me and say, here's the receipt number, DM me. And you can tag Michael and I on the socials and say, I ordered it. Just show me a screenshot. That's good enough. And we'll enter you into a cool contest where you're going to win one of our cool brain-based goal setting programs. It'll go really hand in hand with the book. So we want to make it fun for you. We want to make you take this action step because as I read through this book, if it's implemented in your life, I believe people's businesses will 3, 4, 5x and their enjoyment of life and that freedom they've been trying to earn or purchase through their business will actually start to come to them. So, all right, Michael, so you were telling me about a cool thing that you have for the tribe. So I'd love for you to share that because we love getting people into action, right?
Yeah. So in addition to showing Shannon your receipt, if you go to winandsucceedbook.com/epic, and Shannon's going to put that in the show notes.
Absolutely.
You can go there with your receipt, turn that in, and you get a whole bunch of free bonuses, amazing bonuses that go with the book to make it easier and faster to implement this entire concept. But one of the things you'll get is the double win. That's what we call Win at Work and Succeed at Life, the double win. You get the double win cheat sheet, which is a frameable infographic that'll remind you of the 5 principles and the 5 kind of challenges that they're designed to overcome so that you can kind of keep your bearings when you get too busy and when you're tempted to go all in on work and forget the rest of your life.
Oh my gosh, so valuable. So we'll pop that into the show notes. Make sure you go over there and do that because having it right in front of you, as we've been sharing, once your brain sees it, it needs to believe it. And if it's seeing it every single day, your brain starts to believe it and it becomes real in your life. So Michael, I love having you on. Thank you so much for your work in the world and looking forward to seeing what my tribe thinks of this book.
Thanks, Shannon. I appreciate your enthusiasm.
Wow. What a great interview. What a great book. When It Works, Succeed at Life. Definitely go check out that link. Let's see. It was winandsucceedbook.com/epic and get all those bonuses. How cool is that? And I want to hear on the socials what was the one thing about this interview that really was an aha moment for you. And I cannot wait to see you again on our next podcast. Until then, bye for now.